Good morning, everybody. Today, we are talking about imposter syndrome and how that can impact your career and what to do if it does impact your career. This is something that I have dealt with before and that I still deal with today. And so that's why I thought it would be something good for us to talk about on morning motivation this morning. So do me a favor, if you're watching live or if you're watching on the replay and you've ever experienced imposter syndrome, or even if you know what that is, go ahead and put something in the comments. Give a hashtag me or something. And let me know if that's something that you have experienced because it's fairly common. And yeah, there are some problems with the way that we define imposter syndrome. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute and the way that imposter syndrome is applied. But if you feel like that's ever been something that you could say, yeah, I've struggled with that, go ahead and leave a comment. So, what is imposter syndrome? I have a definition here on my description that was from the Harvard Business Review, and that's pretty simple. It's doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. So, this would mean feeling like you pulled one over on clients or colleagues or other people who appreciate your work and thinking, wow, I managed to convince them that I actually know what I'm doing. And I don't really know what I'm doing, but somehow I convinced them. And what's interesting is that, I think this is a very natural thing, first of all, just because you doubt yourself and you wonder if you're doing the right thing. That's not necessarily imposter syndrome. I think that's a healthy part of developing ourselves as professionals. There's a healthy amount of doubt that we sometimes experience. We wonder, am I doing this the right way? And oftentimes, when we try something new, it's a test. It's to see, is this really something that's going to work? Every good scientist will tell you, the first time you run an experiment, we don't necessarily know the answer, what's going to happen. So just because you have some doubt or you're not 100% sure. uh, Good morning, Elaine. She has my kids now. Um, and yeah, just because you doubt something doesn't mean necessarily that you're suffering from imposter syndrome. And that also doesn't mean that you're a fraud. I mean, we all try new things. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. And that's okay. That's called life. Elaine says, sometimes for me, yes, she has experienced imposter syndrome, but I know my intelligence and my child's pediatrician insulted it. And I wasn't too happy about that. Yeah, and Lane, you just demonstrated the power of knowing your worth, which is super important. And hi, Sherry. Thanks for joining in this morning. The power of knowing your worth is really important. That's part of how we defeat imposter syndrome is by knowing that our contribution to the world is valuable and knowing, that we know what we know and also being open to saying sometimes I don't necessarily know the answer to this, and that's okay. One of the things I said in the comments is that we don't just to be a professional, to be, have credibility of who we are. That doesn't mean that we have to know everything. It's completely fine to say, that's something I don't necessarily know. That doesn't make you a fraud. That doesn't make you less of a professional. That just makes you an honest person. Thanks, Sherry. And thanks, guys, for watching. And if you guys have had any experiences with this and you want to talk about it, Elaine, I appreciate your contribution. Throw those in the comments. If you're watching on the replay, you can do that as well. So, what do you do if you find yourself consistently experiencing imposter syndrome? If you consistently feel like your brain is saying, I'm a fraud, I'm not really good at this, I'm not really a professional in this area, even when other people are recognizing you for that. I dealt with that for a long time. What's interesting is when I first started working on resumes, constantly I was getting great feedback from my clients, but I would say, oh man, I managed to do it again. They don't know that I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, at that time I was new to it, but I had put in the study. I'd gotten my certification. I knew what I was talking about. And it was funny because I would consistently get positive feedback, and then I was consistently thinking, "Oh, I must be a fraud. I must be the world's best deceitful person because I'm able to convince so many people I know what I'm doing." The fact that I actually did know what I was doing didn't cross my mind for a while. So Jen, thank you so much for watching. She says she definitely experiences this too. So that was for a long time, and occasionally I still feel that. I still struggle with it. And for a long time, though, that was my initial reaction. So, what can you do when you're experiencing this? Well, Sherry has some great advice. She says, fake it till you make it and keep getting more training in your field. Also, believe in yourself. That's what I did. Sherry, you're somebody that I definitely say you have credibility in your field, whatever my opinion means. But, you're definitely someone I would say, yeah, that person is credible. And fake it till you make it. Yeah, that's perfectly okay for you to do, and keep getting more training and admit if you don't know the answer. And that's okay. But believing in yourself is a very important part of this. Sometimes we just tell ourselves stories that are not true. That was what was happening for me. The external feedback I was getting was positive, but I was telling myself this story over and over in my head that I didn't know what I was doing, that I'm just a this, that I'm just a person who, started doing this. I don't have any credibility. And that wasn't even what I was getting from the external feedback. That was just in my head. So believing in yourself is a huge part of it. So what can you do if you feel like you are struggling to believe in yourself? Well, first of all, the first tip that I give here is ask yourself if it's really imposter syndrome, or are there other things going on here? There have been imposter syndrome has come under fire recently, and I do agree that there are some challenges with it, because sometimes people have cried imposter syndrome when there's really things like discrimination going on, and that's actually true. And sometimes women and people of color and other marginalized groups have consistently struggled to make it to the where their less marginalized counterparts are. So first is just to examine the situation, and it's a really good idea to talk with someone who is an objective third party to explain all the variables. I deal with a lot of people who have really difficult job situations, and sometimes just talking with an objective third party where you can say, yeah, that probably shouldn't be going on. Like, that's not necessarily imposter syndrome. Like, these people are not doing the right thing, and maybe you should get out of there. Maybe that's a toxic workplace, or maybe, you're not getting recognized for your contributions and you could be recognized somewhere else. So, don't necessarily think that the problem is your fault. It's important to examine all the variables. Jen says that she's about to start a job that she feels completely unqualified for. I think so many times when we start something new, we feel completely unqualified. And that's where the number 2 suggestion I have comes into play, is to make lists of your achievements, return to them often, look at the facts. So I know that Sherry here she does things with mantras. I know other people have done work with affirmations, and that is where you speak positively to yourself. And I think that that's a really great idea. So that's something that we can include in these tips here. For some people, that doesn't work. Well, I think it eventually works, but some people feel uncomfortable with it because they've just got that voice in their head that's saying, well, it's not me. I'm not, so that voice is hard to drown out. And what I recommend in that situation is go back to the facts. Look at the things you've done. Look at the qualifications you have. Look at the experience you've cultivated, or your degree, or your stories of times you've done things well. Write that stuff down. I'm a big fan of keeping a list of your daily wins and emailing that to yourself regularly. And then when you start to feel like this, look at the facts. The facts don't lie. You've done these things. And so, Jen, I'm sure that if you were able to get that job, you did the things that get you to that space. And Elaine, I love your positive comment here. Sorry, needed to drink water. New beginnings are literally the best because no one knows what you're capable of. Yeah, the opportunity to make a positive first impression is awesome. And there's something exciting about new beginnings. There's also this idea of approaching things from a beginner's mind rather than so when you have that negative voice in your head that's saying, I don't know, I don't know this, I'm not good at it. Instead, just approaching things with curiosity. What can I learn from this? And, this is going to be something interesting. I'm going to learn a lot from this experience. And remembering that growth is a positive thing. So just because you tried something and failed, well, you learned from that. That's growth. That's credibility. We can put that on your resume. That is actually supportive of your skill set rather than a negative thing. And Sherry says, I am always a student regardless of credibility in my field. So that's that idea of holding that beginner's mind or student mind. I'm always learning, and that's okay. And that's good. And when I experience challenges or when I experience things that I don't know, that doesn't mean that I have to slip into this negative story of I don't know what I'm talking about. It means, I've learned something new. There's new opportunity here. There's new potential here. So a lot of times it's just reframing how we think as well. So, there's lots of different, if you're struggling with this in your career right now, hopefully some of those tips can help, whether it's just how do you reframe your thinking? And again, there's so many different ways to do that. You have to find the thing that resonates with you. So sometimes it is those affirmations. Sometimes it is writing down your achievements and going back to them. A lot of times I'm working with clients that I've written a resume for, and we're going through that and they're saying, I don't think I'm this person. I can't do this. And I'm saying, did you do that? Well, yeah. So you could do that, right? Because you did it. And so sometimes it's just talking through it with a third party. Yeah, Jen, I like this comment. She says, I keep reminding myself that I'm sure there's a manual in the office somewhere I can refer to. Remember that you have support also. Nobody is expected to be the end all be all of everything. If that is who you are trying to be, then you're probably setting your sights on the wrong thing, because like Sherry said, you can always be a student. You can always learn more. You can always learn from people around you. You can count on that support, that the knowledge will come to you when you need it some way. Sometimes it's by looking in the office for a manual. Sometimes it's by talking to other people. Sometimes it's just by going inside yourself and finding the answer. I'm a big fan of all of the answers are inside you, but many of the resources are outside. So, that's those are some ways that you can rely on the fact that you have support out there. I've worked when I had a real job, when I didn't work for myself. I've worked for employers that want to be the buck stops here. They want to be the only person who makes all the decisions. They pass out the org charts with them at the top. and that's it. I got to tell you, those places are not the greatest places to work. I got to tell you that most of the time when you're relying on one person, it's not a great situation to be in anyway. Good leaders will tell you that they're only as good as their teams, their mentors, their support people. And so know you have that. That's always available. There's always support available. And even when you're in a very challenging workplace, and you can go outside of that a little bit and look at, in terms of not just the workplace you're in, but your whole person and your whole life, there's always support available to you outside of the workplace that can help you personally work through those workplace challenges. And maybe that's changing to a different workplace. Could be. But there's always support available to you. And if you're in a workplace where you find yourself unsupported, I've worked with a lot of clients who feel that way. That's when it's time to talk to somebody and get that problem solved, because odds are you're not going to do very well without support. And then you're going to end up leaving, and the next person that's there isn't going to do very well either, because we all need support. So if you are experiencing imposter syndrome today and you want to talk to someone who is a neutral third party, you can feel free to connect with me at either MorleyCareerSolutions.com or Green Cow, Go Green Cow or Green Cow Show. We have some really cool things coming up with both of those programs, both of those organizations. We are doing some free classes on Thursday evenings with Green Cow that you can take via Zoom, or you can be in person if you live in the Chicagoland area. Those are 100% free, and they're focused on business and career topics. So if you'd like more information or you'd like the schedule, we're also starting to put together some mentor groups for people who want to do some cool things, but you want some support. We're trying to build some support systems. So if you'd like more information about how to be part of the mentor groups, let us know that too. All right. Well, I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for being here. Thanks for those of you who participated, and I'll see you soon. All right. Bye, everybody.